All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to CMX Madrid. Thank you all so much for joining us for what is actually our last CMX Madrid, at least for this organizing group. So, very appropriately so, our topic today is saying goodbye and knowing when to sunset or pass on the torch of your community. So before we dive in, I'd like to share just a little bit about CMX and CMX Connect. So the local program by CMX is powered by Bevy and is here to bring together community professionals from all over the world at both in-person and online events. And the goals of the program are to connect and meet with at least one awesome person, to learn from each other, and to get at least one actionable idea that you can implement today and advocate for the community industry. And CMX Connect has over 60 chapters worldwide that meet monthly to talk about topics that matter. And you can find all the events at events.cmxhub.com and even start your own chapter. We have a really exciting agenda planned here. So Seppi, can you tell us what we have planned for tonight?
So I think Seppi's having a few problems getting her camera on. I'm just double checking. Yeah, she's having a few problems. So I will do the agenda and hopefully Seppi will come and join us in a moment. So yes, we have got a fun-filled event for you as always. We're going to start off by doing a review, a chapter in review, should I say. It's been 2.5 years, and as Andrea said, we are closing the chapter tonight, and I'll speak all about that in a moment. Then we're going to move on to a panel discussion where we've got an all-women panel tonight of Angela, Seppi, Beth, and Pixie. We're going to be talking all about knowing when the right time is to sunset or pass on your community and all the kind of things around it. We'll then have a quick Q&A if you have any questions, and then we'll wrap up the evening. So hopefully that sounds good to you. Feel free to relax. Seppi is here now. Hi, Seppi.
Hi, Valentina. Thank you for running through that. And hi, Angela. And hi, everyone who's out there. Thanks for running that while I had my tech issues. You know, how long have we been doing virtual events and still tech issues get the best of us? But I'll let you guys take it, and I'll be talking to everyone soon.
Yeah, so I'm going to jump right in with a quick chapter in review of the Madrid chapter. I mean, 2.5 years. There's so much that's happened, and I'll give you a few numbers to put this into perspective. So we've hosted 30 events. 12 of those were in-person events, and what was it, 18? Yeah, 18 online events. It's too late for me to do math right now. So a lot of events, we did them almost every single month until kind of like this year, kind of July, August. Attendees wise, now this is something that it blows my mind. We had 1,672 people RSVP for our events in that 2.5 years, and not including this one, we had 929 check-ins. So that's obviously going to go up a little bit because all of you are here with us tonight. We didn't hit the 1,000 mark, but you know what? I'm so happy that 929 people came in person or online from all around the world to come and learn and up-level their skills in community management. So that's amazing. We had 58 sponsors and partners over those events, from food, drink, co-working. I mean, we did, at one point, we did a raffle. We've done a few raffles actually, where I think we had 25 different prizes, where people in the community were offering up sessions, products, services, you name it, we had it. So we're really grateful to all those people and all those companies for helping us make all of our events really successful. Now, some memorable moments of the CMX Connect chapter, and Seppi and Angela, feel free to chime in if you have anything different. First thing for me was our holiday celebration. That was in 2019 before this craziness happened. We did a co-chapter event with Seppi's community, the Madrid Blogger Network. We had 70 people come and join us for what was an amazing night. Food, drink, fun. We had magic. We did the raffle, and yeah, it was just a lot of fun. And yeah, that was probably the highlight for me. Then we celebrated 2 years in 2 different events. Both were online. We had some fun with that. I wrote a poem. We had more things to give away, and that was fun. And then, of course, most recently, we went live at CMX Summit 2021 from the Irish Rover. We had 8 people join us for that event, and we was on the main stage with Beth via all these different streaming platforms, because that's 2021 now, right? And that was just really fun to do. Angela, I'm getting confused. There's so many women on this call. Angela and Seppi, do you have any other highlights that you want to share?
I mean, I was going to say the same thing, the holiday party, just because it was our biggest event and it was such a fun celebration for the end of the year, and really like the biggest event we had before COVID. So it was just a really special memory. Wish we could go back to that event.
Right. Anything from you, Angela? I know it's only been a short time, but
it has been a short time, but I think every interaction I had with both of you was just such a delight. And even in just a short time, I feel like I've learned a lot from both of you. Going live at CMX was really fun at the Irish Rover, and just Val, watching you put it all together with like your tech setup was incredible as well. But yeah, that was such a great crowd, and it was smaller, but some really real connections there that night. So it's really lovely.
Yeah, definitely. Now, a little bit of context about why we are closing this chapter, because some of you may be sad. We are sad too. It's very bittersweet. We have been so lucky as a team that in the last year, our careers have elevated to a level that we didn't think probably a year ago that they would. For example, Andrea now manages 5 teams of people, which I don't think she ever anticipated. So you can safely say her time is being spent up with that. Seppi is moving forward very fast with She Here Refresh. She's doing wonderful things at Power to Fly as well. So it's hard to juggle when you've got lots of balls in the air, right? And I have been working with Disciple, which I'm now working full time as well. So this experience with CMX and CMX Connect has really helped us get to where we are today. I remember back in, 2018 now, and Seppi said to me, you should join this Facebook group. I'm like, what is this? And it was the CMX Hub Facebook group that I never heard of, never even heard of CMX. And I joined this group and I was like, oh my God, there's people out there doing the same thing as I am. And Beth was looking for people to start chapters. And at our first event, we had 5 people and I had no idea what I was doing. But kind of fast forward, we have been able to grow our networks. We've been able to learn so much. I flew to San Francisco for Summit that was in person. Fingers crossed it happens next year. But I cannot tell you how beneficial it has been to be able to build a chapter and a community with people in Madrid and internationally, thanks to COVID. And it's just been so nice, and I'm so grateful for all of the opportunities. But it's come to a point where we are struggling to manage our time. And I'm sure as a lot of people that are listening and watching right now, being a community manager is hard work. We are juggling so many different things at once, and you have to prioritize. And that's something we're going to talk about in the panel tonight. But I don't know if Seppi or Angela, you want to share anything about your experience being a chapter host with everybody.
A few words. That was wonderful, Valentina. I loved everything you said. Want to echo all of that. I mean, community is everything, especially for those of us who were in Madrid and were part of the in-person events. You know, a city can be great, but really what makes a place is the people that you know. And I feel like these monthly gatherings that we had were so special, to see friends, to see other community builders, to learn from each other, to support each other, and just feel, you know, seen and heard and part of something, especially for many of us who are living very far away from our homes. And so it was just really special to have those in-person events. The online events, it was great. We could transition virtually, but I think I'll always miss the magic that was made when we were all in a room together in Madrid. So very fun memories. And hopefully, you know, we were able to help create a space for all of you out there that were in Madrid and also online to have some great memories of our times together.
And I don't think I could have said it any better than what Valentina and Seppi just said. The strength of any community is the people, and that is the magic. That's the secret sauce. And if anybody out there wants to restart this chapter, you can bet that I will definitely attend your events. So.
Yeah, or any chapter in the world, in fact. If you're listening and you're thinking, city, like, speak to Beth. She is actively recruiting for new chapter hosts. Okay, we are going to move right on now to the main part of this event, and that is a panel discussion. And I'd like to welcome up Pixie and Beth. So feel free to turn on your cameras, ladies, and we will get started. Now, before we get into this, I'm just going to give a very short introduction to everyone that's joining us today. So for those of you that don't know, Beth is the head of community at Bevy and CMX. She oversees the engagement, strategy, and structure of all CMX community spaces, as well as the CMX Connect program. She's based in the Rocky Mountains in Jasper, Canada, and spends most of her time in total awe of their majesty. I feel like I'm on like a dating, you know, where it's like first dates, you know, like trying to introduce people. Anyway, Pixie is a community builder who is passionate about developing people and their ideas. She has built multiple successful communities in youth development, education, startups, legal tech, and e-commerce. She's currently based down in Valencia. She's only just moved there, so she's very close to us all. And today she's the director of online communities for Teach for All. Angela, who you all know, is a community strategist at Automatic. As I mentioned, she is managing so many people right now. She's doing an awesome job, where she oversees the program and contributor experience teams that contribute to the WordPress open source project. She's in Madrid, so we often meet up, go for bagels, and she's joining us today. And lastly, most of you know Seppi, but if you don't, Seppi is the founder of She Refresh, a global community for women aged 30 and over who want to break free of routine and start a life of travel. She also had the Madrid Blogger Network, which I mentioned before, and she's actually based in Malaga, and she's also working for Power to Fly. So she's doing a lot of different things. So welcome, ladies.
Hi.
Oh, I think we've lost Seppi. Where's she gone? She's having a few technical difficulties. Well, we'll get started. Oh, and Beth's gone now as well. We'll get started.
Am I still here?
You are still here. On my screen, you are. Angela's still here. I'm still here. Seppi's coming back. We might drop in and out because, you know, why not? Let's get started with our panel. And if anyone has any questions throughout, feel free to drop those into the Q&A. I've just started that there, or you can wait till the end. So I've got specific all. So we're going to get started with Angela. Angela, closing a community can happen for a number of reasons. What have you seen in the communities you work with and their reasons for potentially closing?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and I got to say that I am really glad that we're talking about this, because even though it's a really sad topic, it's such a real topic. All things will come to an end for so many different reasons. And it's really hard to talk about because as community managers, we put ourselves into that community, not to mention the time and the energy, and you don't want to see it end, but sometimes it is absolutely natural for a community to come to a close. One reason is lack of people interested in continuing the community. As Valentina said, community leadership is hard work, and event management like this takes time and energy. And if you are busy people, like I imagine many of you out there are, adding one other thing to your busy schedule it's a big ask. One fallacy that I see more often than I would like is this belief that if I don't continue this community, it's going to die without me. And so if your community is dependent on just one person or a group to continue, that's already a big flag to me around the longevity of your community, which is all about the people. So that's not a good reason to continue the community if you're already feeling burnt out and there's nobody there to help you take on that torch. And I personally work with a volunteer community and very much like CMX Connect. And sometimes life just happens. Jobs become more demanding, our jobs grow. We find other communities that offer different opportunities that we might just really need in that moment. We move and we can't be involved due to geography or time zone. And especially in these past 2 years, I think we've all had to really re-examine what we have time for. And it doesn't mean that you can't start a new community at another time, and nor does it mean that the community even ends completely. Like we said here, if you want to come organize CMX Madrid or a CMX community in wherever you are, that is a great possibility. And having that fresh energy come in and say, hey, I want to start this up is a wonderful gift to that community. So, trying to end on a positive note there.
Thank you, Anja. No, definitely. It's a lot about prioritizing and really putting on the table what you currently are doing and where you are at with all of those things, because you can do anything, but you can't do everything. And even though we try, it gets to a certain point where you burn out, right? So I love that those kind of themes are coming up with other communities. So I feel like a lot of the times when we feel like stopping something or closing something, that we're the only ones going through it. A little bit like building a community. Nice to hear that the same things are happening elsewhere, even though that's sad at the same time. Okay, Seppi, deciding to close a community can often be a result of feeling like you failed in some way. What advice would you give to community managers who may feel this way, and how being resilient can help them through?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question. I think, how Valentina started off tonight's event, really reflecting on, what was created out of the community that you've built, how you have benefited, how you have helped others. I think really focusing on what was created in that time to focus things in a more, positive light. It's natural in life that things run its course, right? Relationships run their course, parts of our lives, chapters of grade school to college to your first job. You have to let things go in life. And that doesn't mean it's a failure. It just means that you're growing and things are going to change naturally. So if you feel that it's time to close your community, that's not a reflection on you or your community. It's just a reflection of maybe where your priorities are and where you're going in life. And it's okay to let something go. I understand how it can be hard because we pour our hearts and soul into this creative endeavor, this universe that we've built, and it feels like a part of us. But like, everyone out there are chapters in our lives. Athletes have to let go. of of moments of their life to transition. So do musicians. It's just a natural part. I think that's what I'm trying to stress here. It's just another natural part of growth. And so really, again, just reflect on what you created and what you gave people, instead of focusing on, the actual closing of the chapter. And who knows what you're moving on to. Closing one chapter or one community may be leading you to, something even better for yourself. So focus on the positive.
Love that. I think we tend to focus on negative things first. I think they sometimes pop up in our heads before the positive, and really changing our mindset to be like, what have I got out of it? What have my community got out of it? What impact have I made? And that will help you like move away from the feeling of failure, because that's just not a nice feeling to have. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, Pixie, what should community managers be looking for successes if they're looking to pass on the torch of their community, as they say? And what advice would you give on building out a team based on your experience and what you've seen from other communities?
So when we're looking at building up a new team, you need to obviously understand like what is the main, like how are you leaving the community? Are you leaving it in like a sudden situation? Because for me, I think the best thing is if you have time to reflect on your priorities, what's going on, to at least give it a good 3 to 6 months. Like if you're planning on to find a new team, because it's going to take time for you to look for people. So you either look for people in your community who's already active, those who have already been, well, I say showing face, or finding someone who's really passionate about the topic. And this is something that I made my mistakes in. I have had times when this year, I was building up a new community team that I wanted to let go. I'm like, okay, you guys take on the torch. And then I so wanted to get it out of the way. And I wanted to like, okay, let's do this. And I kind of went into this interviewing mode and then trying to understand why they want to join. And then I ended up going with some people who are amazing, but then there was a few who was in it for a personal agenda, like their own branding, which I generally find is fine if you're like supporting in the community. But if you're trying to build a team, this is not easy work. You have to make those decisions of what are your priorities, and you need to find people who are really, really passionate about, like people who can't shut up about the subject. That's when you know you're on the right, like you're on the right person, even if they may or may not have community building experience. It's like the team I was working on, none of them have built communities before, but they love the subject so much. So I knew that, okay, we're not on the right track. So then that's like the two types of people you're looking for, those very passionate or those existing in the community. Then when it came to kind of onboarding them, I think what's really good, if you have that time there, for you to be able to give them that space at like you are almost overseeing it, but on a strategy level, like you're giving them that guidance, but letting them run with it. That's a mistake I made because I was so, especially dealing with team who never did community building, I was so worried that I will overwhelm the team and then they will run away and then I have to start from scratch. Like you don't want to give in so much burden, right? And then I was supporting the team in the way I'm like, okay, this is how we can do it. Can you do this? Can you do that? And it was very task delegation, which didn't make sense, right? Because I wanted a new leadership team, not a worker bee. That's like the wrong way to think about it. But
Oh no. Has Pixie gone from everyone's screens?
She has.
She has.
Well, I loved what she was saying and how she was sharing like what she had learned from like where she like and what she wanted to do better. That was so good.
Live events people, this is what happened. We'll give her some moments to come back on. Oh, I think she's there. There
I'm
she
back,
is.
right? I have no clue what happened. What was I saying? Yeah, the worker bee. Yeah, I was doing it the wrong way. I felt like I was creating a safety net, but when you create a safety net so tight knit, you don't give people the time to think about how they want to run it. And a big learning point for me was like us as the oldies, the ones who's retiring, you give them the vision of the community, how things were done before, but you need to make it very, very clear. This was the past. This doesn't equal the future. And as long as you align with the community values, because that's something you're not going to like, that's not something we say like, nah, we can throw the community values away, because it's about the members, right? It's not about us as community builders. So when I started moving, like taking a step back, letting them do things, then everyone felt more confident, because the team felt like, because the previous leadership team was already always giving them the answers, they didn't know that they had their own answers. And it was a really weird moment when we realized this, but it's fourth month in. So overall, it's give people the space, find someone who's passionate, but it is very helpful if you are able to be around for like a 3 months, at least like one event or one project, to give them the needed guidance. This gives especially a non-community builders team the confidence to take it on, and then they can lead it towards them. So I started from there, and then now I'm mainly working on how can I help them find other people to build a team. So I'm not involved in screening people. I want them to be involved. So this is kind of the process. I talk a lot.
That's some great examples, and I love the way you point out about having passion. I genuinely believe that passion can't be learned. Community building can. We can learn through building our own communities, through doing courses, all sorts of things, being part of CMX, but passion, you just can't. So if somebody doesn't have that passion, they're probably not going to have it, because you can't make someone passionate. So yeah, if there's anything to take away from that, is look for passionate people, and they will take your community to the next level, whatever that may be. All right, Beth, before I ask you your question, I just wanted to say, Beth is the person for CMX Connect, and I didn't know if you wanted to say a few words before I ask you your question for the panel.
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, I really appreciate everything that people are saying. Sometimes it's easier said than done to not take it personally when something is closing, because like Seppi said, we community professionals, you have to pour your heart into it to bring the human side, to bring the personal side of a community out. So we pour our hearts and souls into these. We make friends, we build connections. So it's really hard to not, take it personally when something has to come to a close. But I have loved every moment of watching the CMX Connect Madrid chapter grow. The people that I've met through CMX Connect Madrid, not just the folks that are on this screen right now, but the attendees and the people that Valentina and Seppi and Angela have done such a good job of inspiring and introducing to the CMX community. It's just been so wonderful to watch. And so, yes, I'm with you. I'm hoping that there's someone who's, so excited to take on the torch and continue this chapter. But what you've all created has been really magical and beautiful. So I'm just so happy and proud.
You feel like a proud mother right now, right? your daughters are like moving away from home. It's like that kind of situation.
That's right. It's like my mom always said, I've given you roots and I've given you wings, and now it's time to fly. And I just always love that, because like your home is always here at CMX. Your roots are here. You can always come back home, but like it's time for you to go fly.
That's a lovely analogy. I can just imagine us all like just flying all around. And Beth's like, oh look, there's Valentina, there's Stephanie.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going off track. So your question then is all around like communicating with the community. So sunsetting the community can be surprising to community members, especially if they didn't know that anything was going on or how you were feeling, or all those kind of things. What are some best practices in sharing with community members why this is happening and what to expect?
I think transparency is key. Being super honest with what's going on, and being a complete open book. And I, sometimes we try to put on a face of, oh yeah, everything's okay, or oh, we're doing this because it's good or it's for the better. But I think that a lot of community members just want to hear straight up what's going on. Recently, we sunset the CMX Pro community, which was our paid membership program at CMX. We had over 300 members in there, and we have a blog post about why we did it, so I won't go into detail. But the strategy that I used was I went through and I found all of the people who had been active in the community, actively typing or commenting or posting, or even just showing up within the last 90 days. And I invited each and every one of those people onto a Zoom call where we had a one-on-one chat to talk about the pro community. Not all of them had time, but I had a lot of calls, one-to-one calls over a span of 2 weeks, which allowed me a chance to tell them in person, to talk to them about it, to make sure that I was also hearing what they loved about the pro community, to make sure that I would still be able to work that into the greater CMX offerings. The discussion spaces, the discounts, the different tickets and training they got, making sure that we're incorporating that into the greater CMX community. Then I sent emails to all of the other members who hadn't been active in the last 90 days. Again, just letting them know personally what's going on, and then how it would affect them because it was a paid membership. So how we were refunding, how this is all going to go. And then so after all of those conversations happened, then we announced it to the greater community. So I wanted to make sure that it wasn't a surprise. I wanted to make sure that if any pro member was asked about it by someone outside of the community, they would know why, they would feel good about it, and they wouldn't feel like they were blindsided. And when people asked, for more detail about why it was closing, I held nothing back. I told them exactly what was going on. I told them, we want to make CMX free and more accessible for everybody. We don't need your money for this membership anymore. And, it's not driving our business goals for community, which we all know is very important in our role. So yeah, transparency is key. Being honest, telling them as soon as or even if there's an inkling that this might be coming, just so that you don't blindside them. Super important.
And the fact that you had like a timeline in your mind and planned it out with the calls, and then you obviously had the blog post ready to go out. So it's having those pieces in the planning stages ready to go out on certain dates, so you had everything covered, so that when people ask questions, you had something to share with them, or you spoke to people in advance to assess, is this the right decision? So thank you for that.
And it was really important as well, just on that point of not taking it personally. When you're going through a difficult conversation that some people might be sad about, we're closing a community. I think I had over 40 calls in the 2-week period with one-to-one 30-minute calls that were sad. And some of them were hard, and some people were disappointed. There were a lot of people who understood, and, once we had the conversation, they figured that we would be able to kind of meet their needs in other ways, but it took a toll on me emotionally. So it was really hard. And I saw someone in the chat mention that burnout reality. After a couple of days of that, I actively decided that for the next 2 weeks, I was not going to do any other work. I was not going to try to ideate or innovate or change things or come up with cool ideas because I was so emotionally exhausted from having these conversations. And I told my team, like, I'm not going to be available for the next 2 weeks because I'm having these chats. So like giving yourself space to recognize this is going to be difficult and then stepping away from other responsibilities, I think was, I was pretty proud of myself, but also very important.
No, definitely. And someone's put in the chat about, being personal. And I think that's one of the key things here, especially when a community's been going for a long time. And, like, I am sad that this has come to an end. And it's bittersweet because you make that decision and then you think, am I making the right decision? It's like when you break up with someone, you've been feeling a certain way for a while, you break up with them and then suddenly things start happening. Like, oh my God, do I want to be with them? And it starts to play on your mind. Maybe this has not happened to anybody else, but that's how I feel. And it's important to really be honest with yourself and embrace that sadness, if that's even the right way to put it, because it is going to be sad. Anything that you stop, that you've spent a lot of time on, there's always going to be a part of you that doesn't want to let go. But we all know that the longer you leave things that aren't serving you, the harder it becomes when you get to that point. And it could end up at a point where you just kind of disappear completely out of nowhere, which is even worse, right? So yeah, just being really honest and acknowledging the fact that it is sad and, embracing that. Let's move away. I feel very sad just talking about it. Seppi, now I know that you've taken a huge step back from your community, the Madrid Blogger Network. I'd love to know what propelled you to make that decision. You thought about over a period of time, like we were discussing.
Yes, so Madrid Blogger Network, I know we have some people here in attendance that were part of that community or still part of that community. It was a community that I started, I can't even remember, it was 4 years ago, whatever that is. I can't do the math right now. Yeah, thinking about taking a step back from that community had different layers to it. That community was a community I started because I had started blogging, and that's when I was first getting my feet wet in social media and wanted to meet like-minded people in Madrid. And so that was a community that ramped up really quickly. There was a lot of interest in Madrid for that, and I actually met many of my closest friends in Madrid from that community. So in the beginning, it felt like it was a community that I would be a part of for a very long time because it was a very integrated part of my life. But as I evolved and grew and started realizing other strengths and other things I wanted to work in, it became, not a burden, I would say, but it was just something else that I had to spread my focus on. I got involved with Facebook community leadership circles. That was another community I took on. And then I had She Hit Refresh, which is now a business that I have. And then CMX Connect. So there's 4 communities and you can't do everything well. And so that's when I started thinking of maybe taking a step back, but I just wasn't ready. It was my baby. I wasn't ready to let it go or to find someone else to replace me. And as the venues we were using, as those kept changing, I feel like the community itself changed a little bit. And then when COVID hit, that's when I had to make a decision on if I wanted to transition it to the virtual world. And I think we tried 1 or 2 events, but it was just becoming less enjoyable for myself. And that's when I also, a few months later, moved to Malaga and just didn't have the bandwidth, I didn't have the focus to really pour myself into it. I could feel myself detaching from the group. And that's when, I just knew it was time to take a step back because I couldn't create and give to the community in a way that I wanted to, for the community to be what I envisioned it to be and what it had been. So I thought I should take a step back, but full transparency, I haven't officially closed that community, even though Taking a step back has meant I have been super hands off for almost a year now. I have started actually, you know, making a post saying, you know, maybe it's time, you know, this community has run its course. It provided a lot for all of us, but maybe it's now time to close the doors. I don't know if I'm ready for that, but it probably is time to do that.
Fun fact is I actually met Seppi at one of her very first Madrid Blogger Network events, and they were great. But you know, the pandemic has really changed things in both positive and negative ways in so many different aspects of our lives. And I get it. It's hard to say this is stopping, this is closing, I'm not doing it anymore, because I feel like sometimes we hope that there will be time for it, and next month I might have time, and that's something that we've thought about with this chapter. And again, it's all going back to being honest with yourself, and not putting in the forefront of your mind like, oh but maybe, because you know, you're just stringing it along, and it's, again, it's a weight that is then on your shoulders for X amount of time. And who knows what could happen with all your other projects. Let go of that weight, whether it's sunsetting or passing it on to somebody else. Our brains and bodies only have so much room for everything that we do on a daily basis. So yeah, priorities is definitely higher. Now, I know that Beth has had to leave us, so if anyone has any questions for Beth, she has popped in the chat that you can speak to her on Twitter, you can send her an email at beth@cmxhub.com, or she's, of course, in all of the CMX communities, because she's the one who manages them. So if you want to connect with her there, feel free. We've got a few more questions for our panel. So I'm going to go back to Angela, and this about priorities. So if people are struggling to nail how to prioritize, what can they do on a daily basis, like techniques that they can implement to help them get more structure and clarity on where to start?
I love this question. And I think all of us have identified a number of really core things to think about when we're trying to prioritize, like being really honest with yourself, identifying what is most important, and identifying what you are truly passionate about. Now, if you are like me and you have the good fortune of working with lots of community managers who are very high performers, you will likely get the answer that everything is important. I'm passionate about all of this that we're doing. And it's really hard when we're so closely tied to what we love to do. So I'm going to give you some really practical tips that hopefully you might find useful. The first is do a calendar audit. Check out your coming weeks if you plan your schedule out in advance, and see what you are spending your time on. And are there things that you really don't need to do that you are doing because you feel guilty about it? And that's one way to be really honest with yourself. Are you spending your time on things that don't help or add to your life in any way? And similarly, audit your time and get real clear about it. If you know that you have 40 hours of work and you have 10 hours to dedicate to a community, look at all your projects, estimate how much time they're going to take, and then it becomes a math equation. Are you estimating for more time or less time than you actually have? And are you considering flex hours? Because you know you're going to need those hours during your day if something does pop up. And if you suddenly do need to go for some reason, what needs to come off your plate? What are you willing to let go? And if all of that is like way too much and you're feeling overwhelmed, one thing that I really like to use is the Eisenhower Matrix, or the Eisenhower box. It asks you to Sort all of your to-dos, all of your big projects across urgency and importance. This is something you can look up. There's a lot of really great visuals for this. But if it is urgent but not important, that's something maybe you can ask somebody else to do, or you can push back on, or you can postpone it. If it is urgent, but if it is not urgent but important, you could plan for it. And if it's urgent and not important, you can just get rid of it. Don't do it. But if it is urgent and it is important, do it. Keep that on your list. So hopefully I went real practical there. Hopefully that is helpful for somebody out there.
Definitely. I mean, priorities, I think, is something that we all struggle with, whether it's work priorities, life priorities. You know, it's hard sometimes to know what's important, what you want to do, because sometimes the importance versus what you want to do doesn't equally match. Something that's worked out really well for me is I once got a whole wad of Post-its, and I wrote down all the different things that I was doing in my life. It was community things, hobbies, work, all that kind of stuff. And I laid it down on my table. And it really does make you realize how many things you're involved with. And then you have to look at those things and think, okay, what is making me happy? What is important for my professional growth or personal growth? And if it's what you see is just too much, and you'll know it's too much because the reason why you're putting everything on the table is because you know you need to let go of something. It's like, okay, what can go? And you'll soon realize when you start moving the Post-its away that you laser in what it is that you're really passionate about and you love to do, and it will just really just help you focus on those parts, because we can do lots of different things, but we're not going to do them properly if we are spreading ourselves thin, working on 100 different things. And I mean, I'm a big advocate of giving like 100% to everything, and if you're doing 20 things, there's no way you can give 100% to all of those things, right? Something is going to give. So yeah, if Post-its work for you, then do that. But yeah, as Angela said, importance, priority is definitely something that you need to get real with yourself, because it's something that you may think is important and a priority, may not be. But until you physically go in and really assess that and analyze it, you might not realize. So great tips, Angela. Thank you. All right. We have got one last question, going back to you, Pixie. So let's be honest, it's really difficult to let go of a community. We've talked about that this whole time. What can happen if you don't offboard yourself properly to allow it to sunset or continue in other hands?
Guilt. Forever lasting guilt, sleepless nights of thinking about I could have, like that self-guilt of feeling like you let your community down. And that is just what's in your head, even though it shouldn't be in your head. So that's one thing, like for the sake of your own well-being, you want to offboard properly, to have a proper closure. But on a community perspective, when you don't offboard a team, like a community properly, whether it be the team itself or whether deciding to sunset or anything, you end up ruining all of the hard work you put on those years ahead. Because if you can transition it, whether it be transition to another team, then you can transfer your knowledge, your efforts, your community to someone who can make it even better. That's great. Or you close doors in a way that respected your community and also respected yourself. I'm like giving you that chance to be like, hey, I'm going to be part of this and I'm going to save my goodbyes properly. And even when people are lost in your life, that when you didn't get to say goodbye, that's always your biggest regret. And I see that the same as when it comes to a community. You want to be able to say goodbye. And at least for me, I'm sentimental when it comes to my community stuff. In a general sense, I'm not a sentimental person, but community, that could be stuck in my head for a long time. And I just feel so much better. And I feel like when I move on to the next thing, I learned so much from that experience of closing it down, of moving on, that I can properly grow the next community better. I just wanted to add on to what Angela's saying was about the prioritizing. One thing I did recently, I'm learning work-life balance. I heard about this thing, apparently it's important. I'm trying work-life balance out. What I did is that I gave myself a 5-year and 10-year goal, like 3 main things I want to achieve in 5 years and 10 years. And anything I do, if it doesn't, any project I take on, if it doesn't contribute to that, then I don't do it. Even if I love it. Like, I can join as a member, but I cannot join as a committee member, as a project member, if it doesn't achieve my 5-year goal or 10-year goal. That has been my anchor lately because it keeps me on track. So that has helped so far. I'm 3 months in, so ask me next year. We'll see if it actually worked or not.
I think that's a great concept, is really setting out your goals of where you want to be in X amount of years or even months, and really making sure what you're doing in between those times is getting you to that point. And I mean, we're coming to the end of the year, so it's perfect time to start goal setting ready for 2022. Can't believe I'm saying that. I don't even know what year we're on. I'm so confused. But thank you so much to all 4 of you. I can see Beth is back with us. We're going to move into a bit of Q&A. Question in the Q&A tab. If you do have questions, pop them in there and we'll get them answered. So Peter has a question. It's not to anyone specific, but seeing as Beth has come back, I feel like I'm going to give it to you. So Peter says, in your experience, how does making a major change to your community, for example, change of platform, new guidelines, values, major rebranding, acquisition, compare to sunsetting in terms of your approach with members?
Yes, I came back. I'm speaking at another thing and they were like, you have to be 20 minutes early. So I was like panicked, and then I got there and they actually don't need me. So I came back. I actually really like this question, Peter. This is something that I wouldn't think of. So I don't think there is a difference. I think that the way you talk to your members about any changes, big or small, they should be part of the conversation. Now, so CMX just created our new community values, and we did it with the community. So we did a workshop for the HQ team to kind of come up with some main themes and ideas. And then we actually put the call to our community members. First, we talked to our super members, which are our Connect hosts and our communiteers, to provide feedback about what they thought. And then once we change things with their feedback, we put it to the whole CMX community. I think when you're talking about big changes like this, especially things like values or rebranding, they should be part of that conversation, because your community, they are your community. It would be nothing without the members. And again, I will just harp on that transparency thing. Why are you changing your platform? Is it because you can't track the metrics on your current platform? Is it because you can't track sales coming from your current platform? People need to know why you're there and why you're making those changes. So I think transparency, same all the time.
I'd have to agree with you. Like, it's a change, but it's a different kind of change, but it's still a change that you should, depending on the community, communicate in the way that you would normally communicate with your community. But yeah, no, I love that. Okay, we have Leah has a question. I think I'm going to ask this one to Angela. So to perform an audit on your community and maybe try some new strategies, do you have a template that you follow, or a social media audit?
That's a good question. if I understand it correctly, we're trying to understand whether the community is needing new strategies or has new strategies being set out, and how to approach the strategy. And I think it's a great question to follow on to the last question, because if you are suddenly changing the strategy for your community, that is something that you want to communicate to your community members, to bring them along with you. If you're changing something as fundamental as strategy, that's definitely that definitely needs transparency. It needs conversations. It needs that buy-in. So I personally do not have a template when it comes to strategy. I don't think it's quite as I've never done a social media audit. So when I say I don't think it's as simple as a social media audit, please take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, if you're setting some strategies, I think you really have to think about what is the end goal for your community. Where do you want your community to go? I love what Pixie said about I feel like you've basically set yourself a strategy for your next 3 years and your next 5 years. Like, you've got your mission. This is what I want to do. And are the decisions that I'm making every single day leading up to that? How does this fit in with the overall strategy? So setting strategy is a huge topic for communities, and CMX is a great place to learn a lot about that. So there's a lot of really great resources to look in there. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Angela. And I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I think when you're trying to audit whether something is working or not, you have to go back to what your initial goals for the community were, your purpose, and see how you've progressed since you started, and where you are now, where you want to be. And there's a lot of different things you can do. I mean, the CMX framework, the 7 Ps of community strategy, I use that all the time, and that's like my North Star resource, going back to see where I envisioned my community to be, and if it's changed or not, and what I need to change, whether that's strategies or not. So if you haven't used the 7 Ps of community strategy, I would highly recommend it. It's a great resource, and I guess a template that you could use. Okay, we're at the time, and we don't have any more questions, I don't think. I'll give you a few minutes, but I just wanted to open it out to our panelists if anyone had any final thoughts that they wanted to share as we wrap up our event today.
I just want to thank everybody who has participated in this journey of CMX Connect Madrid. As we said before, the people, make the place, make the community. None of this would have been possible without all of you showing up and being a part of this community and basically building this community right from the ground up. So just thank you so much for your dedication, for your energy, and for just bringing yourself and making this community a place that hopefully we're all going to remember with some really fun memories.
Definitely. Anybody else?
100%. And I also want to do a shout out to Seppi and Valentina. I've only been involved in this for like a few little months, and so the work that the two of you have, all the energy and effort that you've put into making this community what it is today, has been really wonderful for me to be a part of, even if just for that brief moment of time. So thank you both so much.
Thank you. All right, I think we are going to wrap things up, and Angela's actually going to take us out of our final event. Thank you to our panelists, Seppi, Beth, Pixie, and Angela. It's been great to have you and share your insights on sunsetting or passing the torch. Angela, over to you.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, thank you so much for being here with us today, panelists, for sharing your insights and being real honest about how difficult this is. I think it's that kind of vulnerability and honesty that really makes a huge difference in the communities that we work in. And yeah, we've had so many wonderful participants and moments. It's definitely something we're all going to carry with us. And just because our CMX organizing journey stops here doesn't mean that it's over for CMX Madrid. So if you are out there and you want to restart this community, please do reach out to Beth. She's an excellent guide and will support you in this. And in any event, thank you so much for being a part of this community, for joining us today, and best wishes to everyone and for all the communities that you add so much value to. Thank you, and we'll see you around.
Thank you, everyone. CMX Connect Madrid.